No crickets. All right. So top of your page. We're going to be talking about how to avoid distractions, right? How to avoid distractions, how to up your productivity. That's kind of what I'd like to talk to you about today. We're going to look into, hey, what causes distractions, right? So, the idea really is to understand why do we get distracted, right? See, we get distracted because, either we don't know how to stop getting distracted, like we actually always allow this to happen, right? And when we look at it, the opposite of distraction is traction, right? And the key words between the two is action. See, distraction is the interruption of a meaningful action. That's what that is. When you look at the word distraction, and if you look at the definition, it's basically interrupting you from some action that's meaningful that you need to have done, right? While traction is the push of the action, right? So any action can be technically a distraction. That's what it can be. Like, for example, when you have an important task that you need to take on, right? And then all of a sudden you're doing these small little things to avoid that action, right? Like, let's say we want to be doing our hours of power. And instead of doing our hours of power, we jump in and start checking our emails. We start checking our voicemail. Actually, do people actually check voicemails? We're actually checking your emails. That's what we're doing, getting distracted on our phones, right? So we're allowing the distraction for that one action that's meaningful that we want to be doing, right? So the difference, however, between traction and distraction is that it basically planning is what it comes down to. The time that you plan and wasting that time, right, is what we're looking for. So there are two types of distraction triggers. I want you to write these down. Okay, two types of distraction triggers. There's one called an external trigger, right? These are the pings, dings, rings, notifications, that everything that or basically takes us outside of our environment. It's the external triggers, right, that we have no control over, right? Then we have number two, which would be our internal triggers. This is the most common of the triggers for distractions. These are the uncomfortable emotional states that we seek to escape from the action that we want to take, right? These the distractions are the mind's kind of response to the desired plan, what we're looking at doing, and then we say to ourselves, no, I feel uncomfortable doing this, so I look internally, hey, what can I do outside of that, right? You know that feeling of anxiety that you get when you're making your hours of power, making those calls to your database, making those calls to people that we don't know, right? And all of a sudden something triggers that kind of anxiety. It's like, right? Tom talks about it's like having a drunk monkey just kind of poop all over your phone. It's like you have every intention, grabbing that phone, making those calls. And then all of a sudden your brain kind of steps in and is like, no, you know what? That to-do list that's sitting on my desk right now, I should really work on that listing presentation or that appointment that I have going on, right? So those are stuff that comes from you internally, right? So the question becomes this, is when this happens, what are things that we can do to avoid that? Like, how can we master and overcome these triggers? Right? So the way to overcome or master these triggers, number one, is fix the source of discomfort. What's that item? What's that discomfort that comes from the action that you want to take? Right? The second thing is actually just learn to cope with that discomfort, right, in a more healthier manner, right? So, begin by understanding, the feeling that you're getting before making these calls. Like, where's it coming from, right? It's not like you're physically ill. It's like, what's holding you back? And a good example of that would be knowing what to say. Like, just as simple as that. It's like, I'm not making my calls because I don't know what to say. Or, we ask you to put together a list of people that you know to go out there and make your calls, right? So this is my past clients, center influence database. But then there's that one person in that list, that one person out of 300 people. There's that one person that the transaction just didn't go the right way. They're a past client. They're in the list, and you're like, I'm not making my calls because of that one person. Well, throw them out. No one's forcing you to call them, just throw them out, right? Understand that the hours of power are you simply milling around within your lead sources, the ones that you've selected, right? It's having those conversations. So it's taking the action back into what it is that you need to be doing, right? So here are some tactics that you can use. Get into a very simple habit. Get into a simple habit where it becomes more automatic, right? We've talked about the pre-prospecting routine. So let's look at that for a second. What are some action steps that you can take that will get you into that habit of making the calls, connecting? I'm using the making the calls part. And again, this can be with anything in your life, but I am using the phone calling because it tends to be a bane of most agents. Right? And even though we're salespeople and that's our job is to sell, right? When I ask, hey, did you make your calls? I didn't do as well as I should have, right? Like that seems to be the biggest answer. It's like, I said I was going to do 2 hours. What'd you do? I did 10 minutes, right? It's like, okay, why? Why is that holding you back? It's because we're not in the habit to do that action. So let's talk about that. Right? What would be a great kind of routine that you can follow where you're now empowering that action, right? So let's write this down. Let's write it. I call it at the top of your page, put it my pre-prospecting routine, right? The little steps that you're going to take to pump you up. Because if you walked into your office, put down your briefcase, hung up your jacket, and it's like, okay, time to make my calls, time to make my sales calls. That would be a terrible outing of prospecting. I'm telling you right now, you're not going to do well, right? We can't just walk in after everything that's happened outside of that door and think that you're going to be productive. That's not going to happen. So we need to have a routine to mentally and physically prepare ourselves so that we have the best results when we make our calls. It's like hitting the reset button. That's how I view it. It's like I'm hitting the reset button so I can, boom, I know the result. So number one is understanding. What is it that you want? When you pick up that phone, what's the results? What do you want from this? And the idea would be to take this, call it 30 minutes, of really getting clear of the results you want. So let's write this down. So pre-prospecting routine. And there are 3 parts to this. Part 1, I call it mental prep, right? Mental prep. What's in mental prep? Mental prep is anything and everything that can get you in the right frame of mind to doing the thing you have to do, right? Anything and everything, right? So I'm looking at chanting some affirmations, having some positive affirmations, right? Because it's either negative or positive, but stuff like, hey, I'm a mean, lean listing machine. I love to prospect. I prospect the energy and excitement. People love to hear from me. Every time I pick up the phone, I set an appointment. So chanting out some affirmations would be a great mental prep. What else can we do, right? Maybe grabbing and having a journal. We call it the gratitude journal. And every day, writing out the 8 to 10 things that you are grateful for in this world. Really putting yourself in the frame of mind. Like, why do I do this? Who am I doing it for? Right? The next thing I would look into is maybe reviewing your business plan. Maybe it's reviewing your quarterly plan and having your quarterly goal. I mean, it's whatever floats your boat. One of my favorite, to be honest with you, is actually just listening to music. Finding something that just gets you going in the morning. Doesn't matter what it is. Getting something that gets you going in the morning, right? Everyone has that playlist. We all have that song or a series of songs that, like, hey, just as soon as it comes on the radio, you're like, yeah, baby, going. Yes, sir. Right? So what is it for you? Having that playlist to get you going, right? So this mental prep should take you no more than 10 minutes. Put you in the right frame of mind. Okay. Number two is practicing the scripts and dialogues before you get on the phones. Practicing what it is that you're going to say, knowing exactly how you're going to ask the questions, how you're going to respond to the answers, and it's pacing and leading the conversation. See, knowing what to say is half the battle. So if you took 15 minutes every single workday and practice the scripts, now there's so many different scripts and dialogues that you need to practice. There really are a ton, right? We have your prospecting scripts. So these are the scripts where you're trying to set appointments, and it could be, a script that you would use for your database, a different script for sale binders or for expireds or for calling around circle prospecting. Those are called prospecting scripts. Aside from them, you need to have a qualifying script once you set an appointment. Find out the client's motivation, the where, the when, the why, right? What else do we need to know? Price reduction, listing presentation, buyer presentation, handling objections. There are so many, lead follow-up. These are all different scripts and dialogues. But if we took 15 minutes a day to practice them, what would happen after a year? Where's your skill set after a year of doing this, right? It'll be off the charts, right? So this would be part 2, 15 minutes of practicing scripts and dialogues, know exactly what to say. Okay, now write down part 3. And this is probably the most important part. Okay, part 3 is visualization. Taking 5 minutes to close your eyes and visualize the perfect outcome, right? You see yourself in your mind's eye, dialing the phone numbers, asking the questions on the script, setting that listing appointment. You visualize going through the qualifying questions and find out the client's motivation, the where, the when, the why, right? You see yourself putting together that CMA, that listing package, driving to their home, knocking on their door. You visualize shaking their hand, walking through the house, sitting down at the kitchen table. You visualize doing an amazing listing presentation and get them to sign the listing agreement. Then you're going outside. You're putting for that for sale sign on the lawn. You're putting that sold rider in the for sale sign, and then you're driving away with like a $15,000 paycheck. Can you see that happening? Do you see that happening? See, what you're doing is you're programming your subconscious mind. You're using your conscious mind in those 5 minutes to program the subconscious mind. You're telling your brain, hey, when I pick up the phone, I get a paycheck. I get a paycheck. In fact, see, your brain doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. And when you take the time using your conscious mind to program it, it actually believes that that was the first call of the day. Even without you picking up the phone, you've actually made the first call already. Now, let me ask you this. If you took these 30 minutes before making your calls, what sort of results would you get? Right? Would you improve the prospecting that you're doing right now? Would the distractions kind of go away? It's having a powerful routine before you make your calls that's going to get you through this, right? Now, we set a goal. How many conversations and how much time do you want to spend in your hours of power, right? And we want to hit both goals. So if the goal is, I want to talk to 5 people that I know, and I want to talk to 5 people that I don't know, and this should take me 2 hours. So then that's what you do. You don't get off the phones until you speak to those 10 people. Even if it takes you 2 hours and 15 minutes or 2 hours and 20 minutes, it goes over, right? You set a goal, make sure you go after that goal. It's the same idea that, hey, I hit my 10 conversations, but I'm only an hour and a half into my calls. Don't finish, don't stop, keep going. You said 2 hours, keep pushing, right? We want to achieve both goals, both the number of conversations and, of course, the time spent generating leads, right? We're focusing on our goals. Now, we do this for 220 days of the year. What sort of business would you have, right? Connecting with people every single, you're talking to 50 people a week, right? You're talking 200 people a month. What's your business like? Right? See, it's the small steps that get us those big results. But more importantly, and the word that I missed there, and you should really write it in there, is that consistent small steps, being consistent of the small things, get you the results. All right, folks, questions, concerns, hallucinations. What do you got?
It's all good.
It's all good. All right, all right. If that's the case, please unmute yourselves. You know what time it is, right? Tell me. What day is it today?
Money making day.
Money making day.
That's right. It's a money making day. So what are the little things that you have to do right now that will help you move the needle in your business? You guys are all awesome. I appreciate all of you. Reminder, tomorrow we will be playing a video tomorrow. And of course, next week we're back at it. I'll talk to all of you tomorrow. Thanks so much.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Danny.
Danny.